Hey guys, so I wanted to go ahead and touch base with you. I had the live stream prepared for 3:30 because I had some things that I had to do, but then it's changed. My schedule's changed, so I'm not going to be available at that time. So I need to either do it now or I won't be able to do it till crazy late. So I thought it was better to just do it now. And I like to do them the next day when I remember everything that I want to tell you real well. So let me tell you what went on. First of all, oh, and also there's something very important that I want to tell you after that. So if you're not super interested in the hearing, I had to get the green light from Diane to talk about this other small thing, but it's kind of important and interesting. So I'm going to touch on that as well. So first of all, the hearing. It's not going to be a long stream or a lot to tell you, but so basically, usually we're heard pretty late. So, but I'm always ready because you never know. But and there were a lot of people in the courtroom, like 20 something people in lots of cases. So the first two cases weren't much of anything, just people kind of changing their schedules and getting some new hearing dates and stuff. The third one was like a 1 hour case about like a sexual misconduct kind of thing in a high school. And it was pretty ridiculous. And it went on for an hour. And I will say, like, of course, people come up with what they can to defend themselves. But like this person was really reaching, like they were going into like word origins for a word that they used against a high school child. So it was kind of obnoxious and awful, but very creative. But we listened to that for an hour. And then I was pretty surprised because I'd gotten up to like stretch my legs out and was listening. And then we were next. So I got, settled and was ready to go and had everything ready. And it didn't end up being much of a hearing, and I knew it might not be, but I was ready in case it was. I wanted to present some new evidence, which sometimes you can in a demurrer hearing, depending on how it affects that aspect of the case, but sometimes not. And I didn't want to push the judge too far that way. So, he first asked about the attorney situation. So I let him know, and I have evidence for all of that the EFF believe the case has merit. However, they can only take so many cases. This one's complex and long, and they did, though, put me on the database for a pro bono litigator. I told them about the independent journalist who reached out, and that that one large tech company, empathized with the case, but that they have a conflict, and that multiple other groups had conflicts. So, that it's a bit of a difficult thing to get a pro bono attorney for a case like this, but that I'm prepared to go forward with that one if need be, but I'll continue looking. And he said that was fine. And then I told him, some new things have happened between the time of our last hearing and this one. Can I relay any of that? And he told me that, no, I couldn't, that, because it's a demurrer hearing, that he is prepared to go ahead and finish looking over everything, but he hasn't done that yet. He's not quite sure exactly yet what he's going to do, but he has what he needs for this particular, thing, a demurrer. Now, I wish he would have known it affects one of the questions that he asked me because, but I didn't want to, like I said, press my luck, being people, judges are people, and they can kind of be like that day. He's very even tempered, but I could tell like that thing before us was irritating. So I didn't want to be like super pushy. So I just kind of, because I know also this could be more useful in an appeal than even in this hearing. And if I use it now, I can't use it later. So strategically, I decided, since he won't let me tell him about it initially, I'm just going to leave it at that. So hopefully that was the right decision. And he may go ahead and, here's the options of what can happen. He can either push this forward into litigation. He can dismiss it without prejudice, which means I can amend the writ. He can ask me to amend the writ based on certain things, like one that he brought up: are they making money off of the content, which would involve interrogatories. That's the point at which I'd ask if I could do some interrogatories. Or he could dismiss it with prejudice, which means I would appeal. And I would appeal based on multiple things I've kind of touched on before with you, but some of them are new. And that's why I named the stream this. So this is really interesting, and I hope you guys want to know a little bit about it, because this is what I will touch on if I need to appeal. One will be all of those defamation complaints and YouTube upholding them. There is a law, an anti-SLAPP law in California, and what it's usually used for is that, like, if you are sued, let's say YouTube sued me because I was speaking out against something they did, or that kind of thing. That's usually what it's for. But it's meant to cover both ends. So what can happen also is that if a company knows you're about to litigate, or if you already are in litigation and they do something to you to silence you, it can be used that way. And that's how I would use it, because we were in litigation when they upheld the defamation complaint for Germany. And we were in about to be in litigation when they did the 20 other ones, and they knew I'd already filed the cybercrime complaint forms. And it doesn't have to be a lawsuit. It has to be anything where they know you're trying to uncover something related to them, or that like litigation is imminent. So that's one thing. The other would be a law that ties into the other law used in the writ about scams. So California's unfair competition law would be, and it's part of the Business and Professional Code, Section 17200, and it prohibits fraudulent business acts or unfair application of terms of service. So they're not upholding the terms of service for them, but they are for us. In fact, overly punitive towards us. For example, me showing Prussians unalive all women hashtag and talking about it was held with a warning, but and I have to take a training to make YouTube a safe place because I'm talking about how sick that is in a video, but he has it on his page. So, and a human being made that decision. So this is while we're in litigation. So it kind of ties into both things. Then we have California's Code of Civil Procedure, Section 473, and that is very important potentially in an appeal because it's going to be where if you omit something and it affects the outcome or administering justice, you have to allow the litigant to go ahead and add it. So when between the last hearing and this one, Diane filed her legal complaints. And that let us know that Goatis Lagstons has all of these bots and, sock puppets. We all know that, but, proving it up is a different matter. And now we have some evidence. So I have been threatened by other parties. I do have a social media account. I didn't make that part of this initially, but since it could affect standing, which could affect justice, I will use that to say that, to make that argument that under Section 473 of the Cali Code of Civil Procedure, I need to be afforded the opportunity to add these things so that I can have standing and then bring the rest of the evidence before you. So that's how I'll appeal if I end up having to appeal. And or filing a new case. The new case I would file would be against Goatis and Marina, omitting doing the other thing, filing it against the social media company, but I would be subpoenaing the social media company for their information, and it would be for false defamation complaints. So we might try that. So these are the avenues using the courts. I will say, and just touch on it in a very general way, there's other things going on behind the scenes that may prove very interesting, and the smugness of the corporation might really look very different very soon when they're having to be in front of people explaining how they could possibly think this makes any sense and what kind of people are you. Okay, so I'll leave it at that because that's someone else's news to share, but I was given the green light to talk about this. So the lawyer Vandergoen, back when he sent those letters to Luna demanding money from her, and it was so badly written and so badly researched, obviously, and accusing her of being the ghost of James Uganda and of defamation and all this kind of stuff, the cease and desist, and saying that Goat Boy lives in Germany and whatnot. And also all these other content creators got these false defamation complaints filed against their channels, myself included. So I filled out the contact form for Vandergoen, and I let him know, first of all, I gave him my contact information too, just because I said, I'll share with you any evidence you'd like to see. And I told him about my case. I said, I'm about to have my records sealed with regard to my home address and stuff. So you are not to share this with these fugitives. They are dangerous. They're wanted in a murder for hire. And if you do, I will definitely pursue something on that. And then I also cited everything that they're wanted for. I said, do you know that they've lied to you? And if they're saying you represent them and you don't, that's what they're telling us. I let them know all about the crimes. And then I, implored him. I said, now that you know, first of all, let him know now that you can be disbarred for aiding and abetting them if you continue to do this and without doing your due diligence to check on whether what I'm telling you is correct or not, and it is. Second of all, I implore you to help us and administer justice in as much as you're able, because I know there's attorney-client privilege, but also other rules might apply. So it turns out, and I know the ghost of James Uganda also did activism that way, and I think he actually sent evidence and used email to do it, and Diane approached them as well. Diane approached them also, finally got a response where he let her know that he did represent them. So they sent that crappy cease and desist letter for real. But once they, got the picture, they're aiding and abetting fugitives who are lying to them, and they jumped off the sinking Titanic of Goat Boy. So they no longer represent them. That's also new stuff that I now know, new as of just yesterday. So I'm going to be also using that in an appeal if I need to. So and they could be made aware of that as well. So one thing I was interested in is like, okay, so does Vanden Goen have to, by way of law, turn in anything with regard to the children? Because, you know, in the United States, you have attorney-client privilege. You don't have to turn in criminals, but in certain instances, you do have to turn things in where children are concerned. That's under 34 U.S. Code. I forget the section. But so in the Netherlands, it looks like they don't have that. They would have to be actually pursued by an entity like an agency that is, you know, advocating for children. So, but we could ask him to do that. And of course, you could look at that and say, well, what would he know since they're lying to him about where they live and stuff? But you know, the flip side of that is there's, you know, the ability to at least get IPs. You know, you could look at the metadata on your communications and make the effort. So yeah, and there's also charges that could be brought for lying to an attorney this way. And by doing that, they could get something into the system on them for yet another crime. So there are some things that could go on there that would be maybe helpful. Never know. But that's interesting nonetheless, what went down there. And let me see what else I wanted to tell you about. Oh, I wrote a letter, and I don't know how this plays into the other stuff that you might find out about later, but and it's kind of detailed. I'll do a video about it in the future, but I sent it to the Elizabeth Smart Foundation. I sent it to Nancy Grace, and I sent it to, and this may sound corny, but it's a fact, I sent it to the president, Melania, and Robert Kennedy Jr. And I'll tell you why, because Goat Boy is using their likeness in videos. And, you know, I wouldn't want my likeness used in those videos. And also these crimes that they're wanted for involve children. And in the Robert Kennedy video, of course, he's got his missing and endangered child on his lap. And the Take It Down Act has been in the news quite a lot lately. Melania Trump getting involved in that. And I also sent this to Senator Ted Cruz and to their representative. The goal being that, you know, it doesn't matter if people are perfectly honorable or not. It matters if they can do something to help you. So, you know, like I don't like everything about Ted Cruz, but I do like that bill. If there's somebody in their office thought this would be advantageous to his, you know, what he's trying to do to get involved in the case, then great. It helps us. So that's why I sent those. And so Melania was involved in that, and Ted Cruz was involved in that. Nancy Grace likes to, you know, use very odd cases, especially cases involving endangerment of a child or murder like this, domestic violence, things like that. So, hey, if she wanted to do a show and put Diane on it, that would be great. So yeah, I sent that out. And also that thing that I wrote for the legal journal, that's interesting. It could get some eyes on it. And you never know how one avenue like this could, you know, just make the right person take an interest, and they have the ability to do something, you know. An attorney reading that thinks, hey, I'd like to get involved in that. I have a little bit of time to spare. Let me see if I can help with that. You never know. So those are the things going on with that. And aside from that, that was it. I will make some content and kind of take a break too. But I heard that Goat Boy is basically reviewing himself. He's woo-wooing his own videos. So that might be funny thing to woo-woo. You know, Marina might bring out her eyebrows or something. So when I get a chance, I'll do some videos, and I'll be prepared for whatever we'll be doing. Oh yeah, wanted to tell you one other thing. So the independent journalist that was sending me some information on who and where we could go, they've sent me some more legal entities. So I will send some letters to them as well and see if we can get representation between now and when we're appealing or when we're moving forward. Either way, it would always be helpful, of course. So that's also a great help as well, and very appreciated. He said I can refer to him as JC. So JC, thank you so much. And thank everybody so much. And, you know, we are going to try to make this the summer where we find these people. So let's keep on at it, and have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.